further ado, we have Limone.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I don't see your faces because there's light in front of me, but yeah. So thank you for coming here this early morning. I'm Limone from Rome, Italy. I co-founded urbe.eth and ETHRome, the leading community for Web3 builders in Italy, and I do a lot of hackathons and building in Web3 for 2 years now. And I'm very passionate about social media protocols, so like decentralized social networks in particular, of course, but I dig a lot into understanding better why, what are like the main issues that we have with centralized solutions like Twitter, Instagram, or any other social that we use in our daily life, and how protocols like Farcaster or Lens are trying to solve these issues. So I already talked a little bit about myself, let's get it started. What are the key components of social networks? So we have the namespace, meaning my username, my display name, whatever, and in this case, like limone.eth on Twitter. You have the network, so the social graph that is connecting people and users on the social network with content, follows, likes, whatever. The database, that is the place where we store all the data, and most of the time, I mean, it's a centralized thing. The protocol, it's defining like the rules and how people can actually interact with each other on the network thanks to the social graph as well. The platform is like the website, the user interfaces with which people can interact with each other. And then again, there are also some other rule set like the feed or some forbidden actions, things that you cannot do, otherwise you get like suspended or banned. And all of these, the problem is that with centralized social networks, everything that I mentioned, like these key components, are owned by a single company and single entity, and they can do whatever they want. So think about our friend Elon here. I don't have nothing against him, but it's just Twitter is an example of what can happen in centralized social networks. So think about when Elon got the control of the company, changed the name, and changed a lot of the rule set, not only for users, but also for developers, for example. We're also devs here, so we love playing around with APIs and toolkits and new clients or whatever. And Elon Musk here and the Twitter company also changed a lot of like rules, like rate limitings on the APIs or things that you can extract or not from the network. So centralization is definitely like not ideal. Also because as a user, maybe you don't like the new feed, or you don't like the new feature, or maybe you get banned for some weird reasons, and it's not bad. Another thing that happened is that, don't know if you heard about this story, that the X handle was not owned by X, of course. There was a guy owning it, and Twitter claimed the username without asking, of course, like permission to the guy, because it's their database, so they can just change a line in the database, and the handle is now controlled by the X company. And they also send a letter to the user saying that the X handle is now their own property, and they sent him a Tesla for bothering him. Another problem with centralized social networks is that they are walled gardens, meaning that you can't easily escape. Let's say that you don't like Twitter anymore, you don't like the new feed, you don't like the new rules, whatever. You can't simply move into another social network because you have a social graph there, you have your following, your content, your reputation, and it's not easily exported and imported into another social platform. So you simply can't escape, even if you want. That's why I think that we should build and use more open protocols rather than locking ourselves into closed platforms and social networks. Even if open protocols are not immune to centralization. Think about SMTP, the email protocol. Most of us maybe use Gmail or other solutions, while there are, I don't know, Outlook maybe is less used. So somehow we are still centralizing ourselves towards certain services that are more usable maybe, but at least they allow us to choose what to use and what not, and we can still communicate with each other. So if I have a Gmail account, I can send you an email on Proton Mail, let's say. Moving further with the spectrum of decentralization, before going to the decentralized example of Farcaster, we have also the Fediverse. Did anyone use Mastodon or know about the ActivityPub protocol here? Yeah, I can't see you, but So Mastodon is one of the main examples of like federated social network, which is, to me, a trade-off that is not worth it. Because of course, like it has some pros and some cons with respect to centralized examples, but basically this ActivityPub protocol, it's defining like new rules or different rules with which people can interact with each other on these social networks. And the main thing with the Fediverse is that there's a diverse ecosystem of servers because users can spin up their own instances. You can somehow migrate your account onto like these different servers according to your preference, and individuals and communities control the network because like each of these servers are not owned by a single company, but there are like multiple instances controlled by me, you, and whoever wants to do it. And these are like the pros. Of course, there are also some cons because there are still some centralization tendencies because not everybody is able or want to spin up a new server. So what happened is that most of the people are hanging out onto like 3 or 4 most popular servers. And the problem with that is that you're not giving your data to Twitter, which is a, I don't know, like well-regulated and public and exposed company, but you're giving your data in the hands of some like hobbyists around the world that maybe they are running their server at their own place, they don't have any security measures to protect your data, or maybe they are selling your data to somebody else. You don't know about it. There's also no end-to-end encryption. And there's also communication silos because sometimes it's difficult to, like these admins can prevent you to communicate with other servers. And yeah, self-hosting is also a challenge. That's why there are not so many servers out there. There are also other protocols which I will not dig like today, but there's Blue Sky, which is an evolution of the ActivityPub protocol, and it was started inside the Twitter company, and now it's a standalone project, and it's following the federated example. Oh, great, I have my slides there, I didn't know. Yeah, not anymore. And then there's Nost, so it uses public keys. It's more like a niche and hacker community. Not very usable, I'd say, but it's just maybe some potential for wider use. Let's go on chain. So the main examples of decentralized social networks running on chain are Lens and Farcaster. I guess you all know about, like, at least like you ever heard about these two players in the ecosystem. Farcaster is a sufficient decentralized social network, while Lens got into a full decentralization approach. They share something similar, but they're also like very different in the way they develop their own ecosystem. Starting from Lens, again, everything on Lens is on chain, it's running on Polygon, and it also has an L3 optimistic technology to store content that is called Momoka. Everything is an NFT, so your profile is an NFT. Every time you follow somebody or like something, you're minting an NFT. And that's why it's not really scalable, because you need like to pay gas fees, of course, and you cannot even delete whatever you post or create on the network. It's cool, but it's cool because you have like composability and monetization modules. You can extend your profile and easily like create new type of NFTs that you can plug into your client or experience to make things more interoperable and customizable. And of course, like it's fully decentralized, so because it's running, I mean, fully decentralized. It's running on Polygon, so it's following their consensus. About Farcaster, Farcaster is sufficiently decentralized. Again, this means that not everything is on chain. The only thing that is running on chain on Farcaster is the identity layer, meaning that your username and your unique identifier in the network is stored on a smart contract on Optimisma. Everything else is running on an off-chain peer-to-peer network. So it's getting this network. It's not getting synchronized with the standard consensus that we've seen in blockchain, but it's just synchronizing themselves with the eventual consistency. Usernames are readable. It's very similar like to Twitter in some ways. The protocol is built like with small text. Like I think the maximum of a cast, which is the tweet, is like 320 characters. So it's very similar to Twitter. But the most interesting thing about Farcaster to me is the sufficient decentralization definition. So a social network achieves sufficient decentralization if two users can find each other and communicate, even if the rest of the network wants to prevent it. And that's what we care about, right? And how we can achieve it. So to achieve this sufficient decentralization, users should always be able to claim unique usernames, meaning that if I'm limone.eth, nobody else can own my username, and I'm the only one able to post with that username to the network. And the last thing that I want to have as a property is that I can always read messages from any valid usernames in the network. So as long as these three properties hold, we have a sufficient decentralized social network, and we are sure that we can always communicate with each other, even if somebody wants to prevent it. But how does it work? I mean, I already mentioned like the identity layer is running on chain on Optimism, so you can register a new ID with your public and private key and storing a new record in the registry. So you have your address associated with an ID and a username. Usernames are also compatible with ENS, so you can use your ENS as a username on Forecaster. And every message that you publish to the network is not going on chain, again, is going to a distributed network, peer-to-peer network. And you're authenticating each message with your signature, so that apps can check who was the real author of a content, because you're signing every message you're saying. And messages on Forecaster are like new casts, new posts, follows, likes. All the interaction that are happening are messages sent to this network that is constantly getting synchronized. The nodes of the network are called hubs, and people are running hubs. I think there are like 400 hubs right now in the Forecaster ecosystem, and they are like synchronizing the state of the network constantly and allow people to create new client apps on their data. So there are already even some services that allow you to easily spin up an app and access an API to start building in the Forecaster ecosystem. Yeah, I already talked about the IDs and names. I mean, human readable IDs are like canonical user identifiers, incremental numbers. I think there are like 300,000 users now on Forecaster, and they are now like compatible with the ENS. Again, on Forecaster, on-chain, Forecaster is not like Twitter on the blockchain. Forecaster has on-chain only things that are needed for the sufficient decentralization things. And the blockchain, like why they decided like to do it like this, because the blockchain is a poor storage mechanism. First of all, because it's immutable, and for a social network, there's no point in having immutable content. And of course, it's also bandwidth limited, because like I was mentioning on Lens, whenever you want to do something, you need to mint or send a transaction. And that's why I think like this approach is much healthier, because it's much more scalable. And I mean, it's a social network. It's not a governance system or any other like maybe payment system where you want full transparency and decentralization. It's enough. How the Forecaster stack work? So again, I've mentioned here we have the identity layer on chain Optimism, and the hubs is like the decentralized, is the distributed peer-to-peer network synchronizing the state for the network. And we have the application layer here where you can build like new APIs interacting with the apps, and these APIs can interact with new client that you can build on top of it. So there are already 10, 20 clients, both web and mobile, native, and many like open source stuff. So it's easy, very easy to start building in this ecosystem. This is a simplified version, so accounts on Optimism, username on ENS. The data APIs is on Hubble. Hubble is an open source library to spin up a hub. And then you have the application layer here. Like we have WordCast, which is the main client. Then you have Jam, Yoop, and Supercast is another one getting some traction lately. And yeah, again, why the blockchain? Because blockchain, so why it's better like to build decentralized social networks on blockchain, because blockchains are distributed and ownerless, so no single actor can modify or control a smart contract, meaning that your username is held and owned only by you, and nobody can revoke that from you. And blockchains are also permissionless and public, so anybody can access their state, build software on top of it without asking permission to anybody. So you don't need an API key. I was mentioning like Twitter, rate limitation, and rule changing on Forecaster, but also on Lens. You don't need to care about people changing your rules. So as a developer, you can build and feel like safe that nobody's changing stuff. So again, why decentralized social? Just to recap a little bit, account ownership, meaning that you are the only owner of your account, nobody can control it. Data portability, because there's no need for migrations, like we were mentioning for Twitter or Mastodon, for example, because everything is running on a shared layer. So if both on Lens, on Forecaster, if I want to move between clients, I can still plug in my own identity, social graph, content, whatever, because I'm still logging in with the same wallet or public-private key pair. Permissionless innovation, because you can build services on top of these protocols without asking permission to anybody. Censorship, resistance, and moderation. It's something that I didn't touch in the talk, but for both like Lens and Forecaster, protocols are open, so everybody can publish stuff. Of course, like people can also publish like bad stuff. And nobody can censor them at the protocol level, but what happens is that the clients can, of course, like moderate content at their own purposes in the application layer. So let's say that I have a Forecaster client where I want people to only talk about cats. If there's somebody talking about dogs, I can moderate them, but I can prevent them to still publish to the network and to the protocol, so that if somebody else wants to build a dog-based client, they can still build it and read dog-based content. And that's it. Thank you. Like, these are my handles if you want like to reach out on Twitter or Forecaster. And if you have any question, happy to answer them.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Can we have the lights on so that we can at least see? Do we have any questions for Limone about social, or how awesome his hat is? Yeah.
How can we incentivize people to participate in positive ways instead of trying to manipulate social media like distributed ways, like through using bots or through like spamming things? Like in crypto in particular, I think communities really struggle because there's so many people shilling random projects, and it's really hard to filter through all of what people are trying to promote, all these projects.
Yeah. This has been an issue lately, because like especially on Forecaster, a lot of like spam get into the network because the social network was growing. So of course, like people looking for airdrops or other stuff started joining Forecaster, registering new accounts, and spam has been a problem. Of course, it's not a problem as big as you have maybe on Twitter, where you can simply like register an account. On Forecaster, of course, it's still a niche, so there are less people than Twitter, so still less noise. And the other thing that is preventing like spam to grow after a certain threshold is that to register an account on both like Lens and Forecaster, you need to run a transaction, so you need also to spend money. For example, on Forecaster, it costs $5 to create an account because you need to pay for the storage that you're using. So this is already somehow preventing most of the spam. But still, there are bots in the network, and there's a lot of work being done at the client side of things to create new user experiences or new algorithms that prevent you from reading spammy messages. So it's not, again, if you can't prevent bots at the protocol level, because that would be even being able to censor content at the protocol level. We don't want that, but you can still moderate and read content however you prefer on the client side of things. So then I hope that this answer. So it's about people creating applications, finding their best way, and maybe even open sourcing them to avoid spammy content.
Awesome, thank you. Did we have one more question? No? Awesome. Well, thank you so much again.
Thank you.